Before we begin, I'd like to suggest that you watch my video on the original Genesis version of Game Ground first, especially if you aren't overly familiar with it. Not that that video was particularly educational, just there may be certain callbacks or things I don't explain very fully in this one. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at Game Ground on PS2, or as its full title is, Sega Ages 2500 Series Volume 9 Game Ground. Quite a mouthful, but to break it down, Sega Ages is a name Sega's basically used to refer to ports, remakes and re-releases over the years. The 2500 series specifically were a bunch of low-budget remakes of their older games released on the PS2. The ninth entry being a remake of, well of course, Game Ground. As I write in this script, I haven't to my knowledge played or seen any of the other 2500 series titles, but if this game is anything to go off, I'm not exactly inspired to seek them out. Game Ground on the PS2, to me, is a huge disappointment. I came in hoping for a game just as good, if not better than the original, and what I got was... There are multiple things wrong with this game, but first I want to start off with something actually wrong with me. A brief example of how smooth my brain is. So, I legally obtain a copy of the game and load it into my emulator. It doesn't start. I think to myself, I need to use the Japanese BIOS. So I select the Japanese BIOS and run the game again. Yes! We're in. That's odd. The save data creation screen won't seem to let me go through. Doesn't matter whether I pick yes or no to either question, it won't let me go through. I start to wonder to myself, what does this screen actually say? Is it different to the standard save data creation screens? So I download Google Translate on my phone. While it's downloading, I think perhaps the memory card needs to be formatted to be Japanese. So I go into my emulator settings, I look for region settings for memory cards, and there are none. Well anyway, I make one just in case and I put it in the slot. And briefly the text in-game changes, but after a couple of button presses, I'm back where I start. I go round in circles for about 5 minutes swapping around memory cards and pressing every combo of buttons, still nothing. I give in and open up a browser tab and then it hits me. This game was Japanese only, so it probably uses circle for accept instead of X. Sure enough, I hit circle and it finally made it to the game. There's the usual studio logos and whatnot, and there's actually a boot up screen for the in-game Game Ground system, which is a nice detail to add. The title screen is almost one-to-one with the original. There's no music, but I'm sure there was in the original. Can't really say it's a huge problem though. A brief look at the options menu and there's quite a few, that's always appreciated. Back to the title screen and into gameplay and The game retains most of the music and sound effects from the original, so we open up the gaming's biggest banger once more. Sadly, we aren't just judging this game on its music, but as a whole, it's perhaps just about passable. Solidly mediocre may be the only phrase I have for this game. Never reaches the lows of something like Jekyll and Hyde, though at the same time its highs are at the level of the original game's lows. So let's take a look at this. First and foremost, the game doesn't look great for several reasons, starting with the colours. Where did they go? The Genesis version is so much brighter and way more appealing. Everything here is dark and muddy. The enemies, the player, the obstacles all blend into one singular puke coloured square. Second, the switch from sprites to low poly models does the game no favours. The models are so small that it becomes hard to tell what you're even looking at, and the textures, I mean they're so blurry. I mean, compare and contrast. The sprites of the original convey a lot more detail in terms of the literal texture of the area. The planks of the wooden bridge suddenly blend into a singularity. The spiky rocks become a slightly lumpy mound of mud. The water beneath you suddenly looks a whole lot less daunting when you can see straight to the bottom of it. Beyond that, it loses other details, like the paths that have been worn into the ground by footsteps. Third, the display of each map and the HUD frame the game atrociously. Areas have been increased in size, and thus the camera is further out from where it was originally, causing everything to be hard to look at, as well as just leaving odd pockets of empty space here and there. And on the topic of empty space, if you look at the original, there is none. The HUD takes up the left and right hand sides of the screen, leaving the whole centre as the playing field. But in the PS2 version, there's all this empty scenery, and it looks as ugly as the rest of the game, and it makes it a whole lot harder to actually focus on the playing field. I mean, it boggles the mind. Why bother? Just put the HUD there. And on the topic, this HUD is nowhere near as cool as the Genesis version. And because of how muddy and desaturated everything on screen is, it's harder to read the text. Fourth, and this may be only a minor change, but death no longer results in the same dissolving effect, which is just, come on. The only positive addition to the presentation is the intro for each level where the camera sweeps around the field. The gameplay also happens to be a pale imitation of the original. Enemies could always fire in more angles than you could, but now they seem to have complete 360 degree aiming, or you're stuck aiming in 8 directions. The movement feels slower and almost floaty in a sort of indescribable way. Projectiles are harder to judge the depth of now, and enemy AI is often erratic. I guess the fact that most attacks seem to have longer ranges is a plus, but it can only compensate for so much when the player character is slowed down, while the game is sped up. Seriously, once you beat the first level, this game becomes the idea I had in my head of the original as a kid. Projectiles flying everywhere, no chance for survival. Death, 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 continue, continue, continue. Wait, what's going on? Perhaps it was out of kindness of their hearts or out of the fact that they knew what they had was shit. The devs of the game gave you unlimited, as far as I can tell, continues. Meaning if you had the mental fortitude, you could beat this game. I do not have said mental fortitude. I played until I beat round 1 and that was it. The game was a total drag by that point, because they continue to make stupid changes, like 2-hit enemies. I know later on in the original game, some enemies are instantly replaced when they die, making them de facto 2 hits, but that's later on, not round 1. These guys come out of nowhere and it throws your muscle memory off. The game never gives you a learning experience by making a single unique looking enemy that takes 2 hits. No, so you're just introduced to the concept. No, it just chugs a bunch of them at you without any warning and they look like every other enemy. 2 hits though is nothing compared to the bosses. I mean, come on. Fuck. Jesus. Took me about 4 minutes to beat this room. 4 on 1 level. I must have burned through at least 4 or 5 continues. This isn't enjoyable in the slightest. The game isn't fun enough to make you care, so you just launch your characters at the bosses to be slaughtered over and over, safe in the knowledge that you can just use another continue. Once I beat that dude, I knocked out. Had to sleep before I could start writing this script. It's been a couple of days now, I haven't touched it since. I probably won't ever touch it again. The only thought buzzing around my head when I play this is, man, I'd sure love to be playing the original right now. I really don't think there's much I can add to it at this point, so thanks for watching if you made it this far. Remember, hit the buttons below, and goodbye.